Chapter 1960, Giant Octopus 2. The burning of the magnificent ice absorbed all the energy around it, so once it touched an enemy, it would drain their supernatural powers and quickly turn them into empty shells. After witnessing Vermilion Bird's abilities, Zhang Yi said that once she broke through to the Epsilon realm, her abilities would become extremely terrifying. This was because it was the ability to indiscriminately plunder energy. The octopus's arms were frozen, and at first it thought it was just a simple freeze, but it soon realized that something was wrong because when the ice blue cold air enveloped its arms, the power in its body was rapidly draining away. Not only was its body temperature dropping rapidly, but its supernatural abilities, physical strength, and mental strength were also declining. Moo! In its rage, the octopus let out a low, distant roar like an old cow. It struggled to stir its 8 arms, and the surrounding sea water instantly became chaotic, with a huge ocean current beginning to stir with it at the center. Vermilion Bird immediately staggered in the water and was almost pulled in. "Be careful," Black Tortoise warned. After all, they were creatures of the earth, and entering the sea would cause them many inconveniences. Understood. Vermilion Bird's wings flapped behind him, and he struggled to pull himself away from the giant octopus. Chong Gong, however, did not pull away. Instead, he took advantage of the situation and moved closer to the giant octopus. He reversed the sword in his hand and aimed it at the giant octopus's arm, which was as huge as a stone pillar of Mount Tai, and slashed down with all his might. "I am heaven's will. Let all things be shattered." As his sword slashed through, the giant octopus swung its arm back to strike. However, the moment they made contact, it wasn't Chong Gong who was sent flying, but the octopus's arm, which was as thick as a small mountain, was cut cleanly in half. The huge cross-section was comparable to a house, and blue blood gushed out. This blow hurt the octopus, which couldn't understand how its tough body could be cut by such a tiny life form. You have to know that all deep-sea monsters must have a tough body to withstand the terrifying water pressure of the deep sea. "We did it! Go Chen, this guy's abilities are truly terrifying." Vermilion Bird and Black Tortoise were greatly shaken. The two did not waste any time and took advantage of Chong Gong's success to launch a series of attacks. Dark Light Cannon. Vermilion Bird Magnificent Ice. The nuclear reactor inside Black Tortoise began to work, combining technology and brute force to bring his combat ability to a terrifying level. Underwater, he was comparable to the bishop. A deep blue light shot out of his mouth and flew toward the giant octopus's head like a sharp sword. Vermilion Bird's cold air also spread out magnificently in front of her, forming a huge vermilion bird that spread its wings and flew forward slowly, sweeping away all the energy and vitality around it. This move was only effective in the deep sea. If it had been used in other areas, it would have caused the death of a large number of creatures in an instant. Even so, the volcanic lava was extinguished and dimmed by the passage of ice-prisoned Vermilion Bird. The 3 powerful beings joined forces to deal with the enemy in front of them as quickly as possible, then share the fruits of the giant volcano tree. At this moment, the giant octopus finally realized the terrifying power of the 3 strange creatures in front of it. Its body shot backward and entered the volcanic ash. It was hard to imagine that such a huge creature could be so agile. Its distorted, boneless body easily dodged Black Tortoise's attack and Vermilion Bird's magnificent ice. It got away? Chong Gong tightened his grip on his long sword. It was very difficult to wield a sword in the deep sea, so he had to use a tool to tie his wrists together, otherwise he risked losing his grip. "Isn't that better? Then we can just take the golden fruits," said Vermilion Bird. If possible, they didn't want to fight in the dangerous deep sea. "It's not that simple. You don't understand these sea creatures, they're smarter than you." Black Tortoise's low voice rang in the ears of the two, his eyes revealing an extremely solemn expression. "Don't forget our initial assessment. Beneath Goishu, there are the ruins of a prehistoric civilization. If they are a wise species, then how could they let us take such an important treasure so easily?" As if to confirm Black Tortoise's guess, as soon as he finished speaking, a low melody suddenly rang out from afar. It was hoarse and discordant, as if an old vertical flute was being played by a poor musician. The unpleasant sound entered their ears, making the entire space feel distorted. Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, and Chong Gong suddenly felt that the world before their eyes had become strange. The demonic sound entered their ears, causing everything around them to twist and distort. The huge black tortoise turned into an abstract turtle in the style of Picasso, and even the volcano next to them turned into abstract, twisted noodles. It's an illusion. Quickly block out the sound and don't let it interfere with your brain. These people were all battle-hardened veterans, and their first reaction was that they had fallen victim to some kind of musical illusion. However, even after they blocked out all external sounds, the strange feeling of a distorted world not only did not disappear, but became even more pronounced. Chong Gong lowered his head and looked at his body. His arms were twisted like noodles. Although he could still feel his body and exert force, he felt as if his body's resilience had been greatly weakened. Is this an illusion? Is the illusion not caused by sound, but by something else? The giant octopus reappeared in front of them, with many round holes appearing on its head. Seawater flowed out from the holes, creating a low, strange variation. Chong Gong and the others discovered that everything around them was distorted, except for the giant octopus. However, this was difficult to say for sure, because octopuses are soft animals without bones. Chong Gong took a deep breath, then injected himself with a stimulant to strengthen his willpower. No matter what abilities it uses, as long as we slash its body into pieces, it should be fine, right? Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, cover me. Black Tortoise and Vermilion Bird were both distorted at this moment, turning into characters in a two-dimensional abstract painting. However, they were still able to control their bodies, but with their bodies twisted, their movements were inevitably a little strange, and they were unable to move freely. The dark light cannon and magnificent ice attacked the giant octopus again. Chong Gong was in no hurry to act, but waited for the giant octopus to expose a gap in its defense. This time, the giant octopus did not use its soft body to dodge, but instead suddenly enlarged the holes on its head. Chapter 1961, Indescribable. Chong Gong and the others couldn't hear it, but they could feel that its blowing was getting louder. The attacks that should have been heading straight for it strangely turned midway and fell in other directions. This caused Chong Gong, who was preparing to attack, to freeze in place. This is a supernatural ability related to space. At this moment, they finally understood that the giant octopus was not using a musical illusion, but was able to use music to affect the surrounding space. In a distorted space, it could naturally evade all attacks. This guy's abilities are strange, but I can deal with it. Chong Gong did not panic. As a space ability user himself, he knew how to break the deadlock. He held his long sword level and concentrated his mental power in one spot. You can only distort space, but you cannot hide yourself in nothingness like chaos. That means your body still exists. Then, as long as my sword slashes your body, no matter what abilities you have, I will kill you. Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, find a way to help me. Restrict its movements. Black Tortoise and Vermilion Bird glanced at each other. At this moment, they could only trust Chong Gong. In that case, we must use a large area attack to strike it. Black Tortoise said to Chong Gong and Vermilion Bird, you two, retreat first. Vermilion Bird knew what Black Tortoise was planning to do and immediately chose to retreat, with Chong Gong following close behind. At this moment, Black Tortoise's huge body swayed in the water like a shadow puppet, looking very comical. However, when he opened his mouth, a huge missile warhead shot out from his throat, which had long been converted into a railgun. The Black Tortoise also had the function of a nuclear submarine. It carried 20 Reaper of Love warheads, and the Black Tortoise alone could easily destroy any small ocean kingdom. The Reaper of Love warheads emerged from its throat, aimed at the giant octopus, and fired directly at it. The fire flickered behind the missile, which did not appear to be moving very fast at first and did not seem particularly powerful. However, after a brief acceleration, it gained speed and finally broke through the water and headed straight for the giant octopus. The power of this high-yield Reaper of Love was enough to directly kill a bishop-level mutant who was not skilled in defense. Even a deep-sea monster with thick skin would be seriously injured. The key was that its explosion range was extremely large, so even if the space was distorted and the explosion source was shifted, it would not have much effect on the result. Black Tortoise had come prepared, and with this strike, he would seal the victory. Just as everyone was waiting for the Reaper of Love to explode and severely damage the giant blue octopus, the giant octopus made an unexpected move. When it saw the Reaper of Love, which was only a dozen meters long, it actually showed a look of fear and quickly retreated backward while emitting a humming sound from its mouth. The moment it left, a large group of unidentifiable objects suddenly appeared from a distant area and filled the entire sea. It was like a huge soap bubble that bubbled up and then swallowed the Reaper of Love. Boom! A violent explosion rang out, but there was no shocking scene as expected, because the intense flames had not yet been released. In the end, they were forcibly wrapped up by that huge, unidentifiable object and swallowed up. Black Tortoise, Vermilion Bird, Chong Gong, and the others were stunned. For the first time, their hearts were shaken. Even Black Tortoise couldn't swallow a Reaper of Love that was about to explode at such close range. At most, he could retract his head and limbs into his tortoise shell and rely on his thick skin and flesh to withstand the blow. What kind of monster was this? What is this thing? This is bad. If there really is a powerful ocean civilization here, then that giant octopus definitely isn't alone. It called for help. At this moment, everyone thought of the giant octopus's reaction to its enemy, which clearly showed that it possessed a high level of intelligence. It even judged that the Reaper of Love was extremely powerful and chose to flee, leaving its helper to deal with it. A hair-raising feeling surged in everyone's hearts. What should we do? This question popped into the minds of all three, but no one said it out loud. The treasure was tempting, and not far away, the giant volcanic tree was covered with golden fruits that gave off an enticing aroma. Chong Gong already had one in his pocket, so he knew how precious it was. Therefore, at this moment, they were unwilling to leave. Forget it, let's fight them! Chong Gong shouted loudly. At this moment, the 3 Epsilon-level mutants all had the same thought. Wouldn't it have been better if they had invited that terrifyingly steady guy along on this mission? But it was too late for regrets now. They could only rely on themselves. Chong Gong raised his sword and prepared to kill the sudden, unidentifiable monster. But at that moment, the huge monster split apart in an instant. Boom! There was a very faint sound, indescribable, like a large foam monster splitting into countless small pieces, which then quickly flew in all directions. Vermilion Bird said happily, "This guy can't withstand the explosive power of the Reaper of Love." Black Tortoise also took a deep breath. "I knew it, how could there be such a monster in this world?" Countless fragments flew in all directions. Looking closer, they were actually clusters of yellow sponges. Black Tortoise looked at the giant volcano tree with burning eyes. "Now there should be no one who can stop us." Just as he was about to swim towards the giant volcano tree, he suddenly felt his body tighten. It felt as though a gigantic sea serpent had wrapped itself tightly around his body and was squeezing it with all its might. What's going on? Black Tortoise's movements were severely restricted, leaving him at a loss. An urgent report came from one of his officers. "Captain Black Tortoise, something's wrong. Your body is covered with a large number of unknown objects, and they are absorbing your nuclear power." Black Tortoise knew it already. And it wasn't just nuclear power that was being absorbed. It was all the power inside his body. Chong Gong and Vermilion Bird were not far away and saw with their own eyes as Black Tortoise's body was sucked up by countless sponges. In less than 10 seconds, the giant tortoise was wrapped up like a big yellow rice dumpling. Black Tortoise. The two men's pupils contracted sharply as they shouted nervously.